I want to start today by telling you about something I call the silent robbery. It is happening right now, in kitchens across this country, in the homes of people who are doing everything they think they are supposed to do. People who are eating their vegetables, watching their portions, trying to take care of themselves. And yet, quietly, without a single warning label, certain foods are stealing something irreplaceable from them. They are stealing the strength in their legs. They are stealing the steadiness in their step. And ultimately, they are stealing independence. I am Dr. Clarence Martin, and I have been a physician for over 3 decades. In that time, I have sat across from thousands of patients, remarkable, active, vital people, who came to me with some version of the same story. They noticed the stairs getting harder. They noticed they needed to grab the wall when they stood up too fast. They noticed their feet felt a little numb at the end of the day, or that their legs cramped so badly at night they could not sleep. And almost every single one of them said the same thing when I started asking about their diet. "But doctor, I eat healthy. I really do." I believe them. That is exactly what makes this so difficult to talk about, and so important. Here is what I need you to hear me say clearly, right at the start. Falling is the #1 cause of fatal injury in adults over the age of 65. Not heart attacks, not cancer. Falls. And the catastrophic fall that lands someone in the emergency room does not happen in a single moment. It begins months, sometimes years earlier, in the slow, invisible erosion of muscle strength, nerve sensitivity, and circulation in the legs. It begins long before anyone sees it coming. And one of the primary drivers of that erosion is sitting on the dinner plate, disguised as health food. After 65, your body plays by a different set of rules. I cannot stress this enough. The foods that were perfectly fine for you at 30 or 40 or even 50 begin to interact with your biology in meaningfully different ways. Your blood vessels are less elastic. Your nerves are more sensitive to disruption. Your muscles recover more slowly. Your kidneys process sodium differently. The same bowl of food can have a completely different impact on a 72-year-old body than it had on a 45-year-old one. Ignoring that difference is not just a missed opportunity. It can be genuinely dangerous. So today, I am going to give you 3 vegetables that science has shown can meaningfully protect and strengthen the legs of people over 65. And then, I am going to tell you about 3 foods with healthy reputations that may actually be working against you right now. Not because they are poisons, but because, for your body, at this stage of life, they are doing more harm than good, and you deserve to know that. Stick with me. This conversation could genuinely change how you move through the world. Let us start with the good news, because I always like to lead with what works. The first vegetable I want to put in your hands is the beet. And I know, I can already see some of you making a face. Bear with me, because the science behind this humble root vegetable is some of the most exciting research I have come across in the context of senior mobility, and it all comes down to one word: circulation. Think about blood flow to your legs like water moving through a garden hose. When you were younger, that hose was flexible, wide, and the water moved freely. But here is what happens as we age. The walls of our blood vessels gradually lose their elasticity. They get stiffer, and in many people, they also become narrower, partially blocked by decades of ordinary wear and inflammation. What was once a wide, flexible hose becomes something more like a rigid, partially kinked pipe. And when that happens, the oxygen and nutrients that your leg muscles and foot nerves desperately need cannot get through efficiently. The muscles in your thighs and calves are not getting properly fueled. The tiny nerve endings in your feet that tell your brain where you are in space, the ones that keep you balanced, begin to starve for oxygen. And your legs start to feel heavy, weak, and unreliable. Beets attack that problem directly, and the mechanism is genuinely remarkable. Beets are one of the highest natural sources of something called dietary nitrates. Now, I know nitrates sound like a chemistry class word, so let me translate. When you eat beets, Your body converts those nitrates into a molecule called nitric oxide, and nitric oxide acts like a chemical message to the walls of your blood vessels, telling them to relax and widen. It is like someone comes along and gently uncrimps that garden hose. The vessel opens up, blood moves more freely, and suddenly the muscles in your lower legs are getting the oxygen they have been asking for. Your feet feel warmer. Your calves feel less tight. Your body can do more with less effort. We are not talking about theory here. There is a compelling body of research showing that when older adults drank beet juice before physical activity, they walked measurably faster and reported doing so with significantly less effort than when they had not had the beet juice. The same distance, the same activity, but the body was working more efficiently because the blood was flowing more freely. For a senior who is already finding that a walk to the mailbox feels harder than it used to, that difference is not trivial. That difference is independence. Now I hear you. Some of you do not like beets. Maybe it is the earthy taste. Maybe it is the color. Maybe you just have never found a preparation you enjoyed. And I am not here to force-feed you anything. So here is what I recommend to my patients who feel that way. Mix 2 tablespoons of beet powder, you can find it in any health food store, into a smoothie with some frozen berries, a banana, and a little almond milk. The berries completely mask the earthiness. You get every single benefit we just talked about, and it tastes like a fruit smoothie. That is your smoothie fix. Easy, effective, and something you can do starting tomorrow morning. Your body is keeping score. Every time you improve your circulation, every time that blood moves more freely down into your legs and feet, your body is recording that as a deposit toward your balance, your strength, and your ability to walk freely. Beets are one of the most direct deposits you can make. The second vegetable I want to talk to you about is the sweet potato. And I want you to notice I said sweet potato specifically. Not just any potato, because the difference between a sweet potato and a white potato for someone over 65 is enormous, genuinely enormous. And I will explain why in a moment. But first, let me talk to you about the nerves in your feet, because this is a conversation I do not think enough people in the medical community are having clearly enough. Your ability to stand upright without falling is not just about muscle strength. It is equally about the constant, rapid conversation happening between your feet and your brain. Hundreds of tiny nerve endings in the soles of your feet are sending signals upward every fraction of a second. The ground is here, your weight is shifting left, you are on a slight incline, there is a crack in the sidewalk ahead. Your brain receives all of this, processes it in milliseconds, and sends instructions back down to your muscles to make micro-adjustments that keep you upright. You never consciously think about any of this. It just happens when it is working properly. But here is what begins to happen when blood sugar is not well managed. When you eat foods that cause rapid, sharp spikes in your blood sugar, what we call high glycemic index foods, those spikes act like a kind of electrical interference in the nervous system. Over time, they begin to dull those tiny nerve signals in the feet. The messages slow down. They become less precise. The brain is not getting accurate, real-time data from the feet, and so its ability to keep you balanced and responsive is compromised. That is not a metaphor. That is the biological mechanism behind the nerve damage that makes falls so much more likely in people with poorly managed blood sugar. Now, this is where sweet potatoes do something white potatoes simply cannot. Sweet potatoes have a dramatically lower glycemic index than white potatoes. That means when you eat a sweet potato, your blood sugar rises slowly and gently, rather than spiking sharply. That gentleness protects those nerve endings. It keeps the signal clear. It keeps the conversation between your feet and your brain fast and accurate. But that is not even the full story. Sweet potatoes are extraordinarily rich in beta-carotene, which your body converts into vitamin A. Now, most people know vitamin A is good for their eyes, and that is true. But I need you to hear me when I tell you that for a senior, clear vision is not just about seeing better. It is a direct fall prevention tool. More than half of all fall-related injuries involve a visual component. Not seeing the edge of a step clearly, not accurately judging a distance, not noticing a rug that has buckled slightly. Vitamin A from sweet potatoes is protecting your eyes, which is protecting your legs, which is protecting your independence. It is all connected. And one more thing about sweet potatoes that I want you to file away, particularly if you are one of the millions of people who suffer from nighttime leg cramps. Those cramps, the ones that wake you up at 2 in the morning with your calf seizing up, are often a signal that your muscles are low on magnesium and potassium. These two minerals are absolutely essential for proper muscle contraction and release. When you are deficient in them, your leg muscles can tighten involuntarily at night, and no amount of stretching will completely fix it if the underlying nutritional deficiency is still there. Sweet potatoes are a rich natural source of both magnesium and potassium. A medium sweet potato gives your body what it needs to let those muscles relax and recover overnight so that you wake up with legs that are ready to carry you through the day. White potatoes, by comparison, deliver the glycemic spike without the beta-carotene, with less potassium, and essentially no magnesium. They are not the same food. Please do not treat them as interchangeable. Your body is keeping score. The choices you make at dinner tonight are directly influencing whether your legs feel steady or shaky tomorrow morning when you first stand up. Sweet potatoes are one of the most powerful foods you can put on your plate. The third vegetable I want to bring to this table is kale. And I know kale has a reputation. Some people love it and some people have been avoiding it since the first time they bit into a raw leaf and had a deeply unpleasant experience. I understand. We are going to talk about that. But first, I need to tell you why kale belongs in the conversation about leg strength, because it earns its place in a way that is completely different from beets and sweet potatoes. Most people think of kale as a general healthy green, something you add to a salad to feel virtuous. But what most people over 65 do not know is that kale contains one of the most strategically important nutrients for maintaining leg strength: vitamin K1. Now, when most people hear about vitamin K, they think about blood clotting. And yes, K1 is involved in that process. But here is the function that almost no one talks about outside of research circles, and it is the function I want you to understand. Vitamin K1 acts as a kind of traffic director for calcium in the body. Calcium, as you know, is essential for strong bones. But calcium in the wrong place, specifically in the walls of your arteries, is profoundly destructive. When calcium deposits build up in the arterial walls, those walls become stiff and hard. They lose their ability to flex and respond to changing blood flow demands. And when that stiffness develops in the arteries that supply your legs, the arteries running down through your thighs and into your lower legs and feet, the result is exactly the same problem we described with beets. The muscles and nerves of your legs cannot get enough blood, cannot get enough oxygen, and they begin to weaken. Vitamin K1 from kale helps guide calcium away from the arterial walls and toward the bones where it belongs. It is not a medication. It is not a supplement. It is a nutrient that your food provides when you choose the right foods, and it is doing critical work behind the scenes to keep your circulation open and your arteries flexible. But kale does something else that I find genuinely fascinating, and it relates to reaction time. Kale is one of the richest sources of a nutrient called lutein. Most people know lutein as an eye nutrient, and again, like with vitamin A, that is true and relevant to fall prevention. But emerging research has shown that lutein also accumulates in the brain, specifically in regions associated with processing speed and cognitive efficiency. And here is why that matters for your legs. The vast majority of falls do not happen because a senior lacks the muscle strength to catch themselves. They happen because by the time the brain detects the wobble and sends the signal to the legs to correct, it is already too late. The reaction time is just slightly too slow. The brain's processing speed has declined just enough that the window for recovery has closed. Lutein appears to maintain and, in some cases, improve that processing speed in older adults. It keeps the brain's response time sharper. And a sharper, faster brain means that when your foot catches on a threshold or you feel yourself starting to lean, your legs respond in time. That is not a minor detail. That is the difference between a stumble and a catastrophic fall. Now, I promised I would address the texture issue. Raw kale can be tough, bitter, and unpleasant for many people, and it can also be hard on digestion. The simple fix is this. Take your kale leaves, drizzle a small amount of olive oil and a squeeze of lemon juice over them, and use your hands to massage the leaves firmly for about 2 minutes. You will literally feel them soften under your hands. The cell walls break down, the bitterness mellows significantly, the texture becomes far more pleasant, and perhaps most importantly, those nutrients become considerably more bioavailable, meaning your body can actually absorb them more efficiently. Massaging the leaves is not a cooking trend. It is a genuinely useful technique that makes kale both more enjoyable and more effective. Your body is keeping score. Beets open the hose. Sweet potatoes protect the signal. Kale guides the resources and sharpens the response. 3 different mechanisms, all working toward the same goal: legs that are strong, responsive, and reliable. Now, I want to talk to you about the other side of this equation, and this is the part of our conversation that I ask you to receive with an open mind, because I know some of what I am about to say will surprise you. Stick with me. There is a particular kind of dietary danger that I find far more concerning than obvious junk food, and that is the food that has a healthy reputation it does not fully deserve. Because when you know that potato chips are bad for you, you avoid them. But when you believe that the food on your fork is helping you, when it has been marketed as wholesome and natural for decades, you eat it freely. You feel good about eating it, and all the while it is quietly working against you in ways you never suspected. Many well-intentioned seniors are making themselves worse right now because they trust foods with healthy reputations that act differently after 65. I need you to hear me say that plainly, and I want to walk you through 3 of the most common offenders. The first one is corn. I want to be careful here, because I am not telling you corn is poison. I am not telling you that a small amount of corn in your diet is going to cause immediate harm. But for a senior who is eating corn regularly, corn on the cob, canned corn, creamed corn, cornmeal, and who is already dealing with any issues related to leg circulation, nerve sensitivity, or inflammation, corn is a high-stakes food in a way that many people do not realize. Here is why. Corn is extremely high in what are called omega-6 fatty acids. Now, your body actually needs omega-6 fatty acids. They serve important functions. The problem is the ratio. For optimal health, your body wants a roughly balanced ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-3s, which you get from foods like fatty fish, walnuts, and flaxseed, are powerfully anti-inflammatory. Omega-6s, in excess, do the opposite. They fan the fire of chronic inflammation. Chronic inflammation is not the kind you feel as pain in a specific spot. It is a low-grade, systemic state where your body's inflammatory processes are running constantly at a slightly elevated level. And the place where that matters enormously for leg strength and independence is in the blood vessels and nerves of your feet and lower legs. Chronic inflammation in those vessels restricts blood flow. It degrades nerve function. It contributes directly to the kind of circulatory and neurological deterioration that makes legs weak and falls likely. And then add to that the glycemic impact. Corn has a high glycemic index. It spikes blood sugar. We already talked about what blood sugar spikes do to the nerve endings in the feet. So corn delivers a 1-2 hit. Excess omega-6 fanning the inflammatory fire in your vessels, and a glycemic spike dulling the nerve signals that keep your balance sharp. Again, this is not about eating 1 ear of corn at a summer barbecue. This is about the regular, habitual consumption of corn-based foods by someone who is already in a body that is less equipped to absorb and compensate for those stressors. After 65, your body plays by different rules, and corn, eaten frequently, is not playing by the rules that protect you. The second food I want to address is canned tomatoes. And I want to be very precise here, because I am emphatically not telling you that tomatoes are bad for you. Fresh tomatoes, cooked tomatoes, tomato sauce from a glass jar. These can be excellent foods. What I am specifically talking about is the canned version, and the distinction matters for two reasons that work together against your circulation. The first is a chemical called BPA, or bisphenol A. BPA is a compound that has historically been used in the lining of metal cans to prevent corrosion. The problem is that when you put an acidic food, and tomatoes are highly acidic, in contact with that lining, the acid leaches the BPA out of the lining and into the food. BPA has been linked in research to increased inflammation, hormonal disruption, and vascular stress. It acts as a disruptor in the body, interfering with systems that, in a senior, are already more vulnerable. And because canned tomatoes are often sitting in that can for months before they are opened, the leaching has significant time to occur. The second problem is sodium. Canned tomatoes, unless they specifically say no salt added, are loaded with sodium. And I need to explain something about sodium and leg health that most people do not hear from their doctors clearly enough. When you consume excess sodium, your body retains fluid. Your kidneys, which in a person over 65 may not be filtering as efficiently as they once did, struggle to clear that extra fluid. The result is that fluid accumulates in your tissues, often most noticeably in the lower legs and feet. You may know this feeling, that puffiness, that heaviness in your ankles and calves by the end of the day. That retained fluid does not just feel uncomfortable. It puts physical pressure on the small blood vessels and nerve fibers supplying your leg muscles, directly impairing both circulation and nerve function. So canned tomatoes, in a single serving, can deliver both inflammatory BPA and excess sodium in a combination that directly compromises the very systems we are trying to protect. The fix is straightforward. Look for BPA-free canned tomatoes, or switch to brands that explicitly say no salt added. Both options exist in most grocery stores. The tomatoes inside are just as nutritious. It is purely the packaging and the processing that creates the problem. Your body is keeping score. The details of how your food is packaged and processed matter enormously after 65. The third food I want to address is one that I find genuinely heartbreaking to talk about, and that is iceberg lettuce. I say heartbreaking because I know exactly who I am talking about when I bring this up. I am talking about the person who has made a sincere commitment to eating healthier, who sits down every single day to a large bowl of salad and feels genuinely proud of themselves for doing so, who has made this salad a ritual, a daily act of self-care. And I respect that commitment deeply. But I need to have an honest conversation about what is actually in that bowl. Iceberg lettuce is approximately 96% water. That is not an exaggeration. It contains trace amounts of fiber and almost nothing else of meaningful nutritional value for someone whose body is working to maintain bone density, nerve function, and leg strength. And the reason this rises to the level of a serious concern is what I call the nutrient displacement effect. Here is what that means. Every meal, every plate of food, every moment of hunger represents a nutritional opportunity. Your body needs to eat. And the question is, what is it getting from what you are putting on that plate? When a senior fills a large bowl with iceberg lettuce, dresses it lightly, and eats it as their primary vegetable serving, they feel satisfied. They believe they have eaten a healthy meal, but their body has received almost none of the nutrients it was actually asking for. Where is the vitamin K1 that their arterial walls need to stay flexible? Absent. Where is the folate that their nervous system requires to keep nerve signals conducting properly? Absent. Where is the magnesium that their leg muscles need to contract and release smoothly, without cramping? Absent. Where is the beta-carotene protecting their eyes and their balance? Absent. Every bite of iceberg lettuce is a lost opportunity. It is not actively poisoning you in the way that excess sodium or inflammatory fats might, but it is occupying the space on your plate and in your stomach that could have been filled by something that genuinely serves you. Every day that passes with a plate full of iceberg instead of spinach or romaine or arugula or kale is a day that your legs did not get what they needed to stay strong. I am not asking you to give up salads. I am asking you to make your salads work for you. Swap out the iceberg for any darker green, and the transformation in nutritional value is staggering. Dark greens contain the vitamin K, the folate, the magnesium, the lutein, the iron, all the things we have been talking about that your legs and your nervous system are actively asking for every single day. I want to close this conversation the way I try to close all of my most important conversations with patients. Human to human. Getting older is genuinely hard. I do not want to minimize that for even a moment. The changes that happen in the body after 65, the changes in energy, in recovery, in the way your joints feel in the morning, and the way your legs feel in the evening. They are real, and they deserve to be taken seriously and spoken about honestly. I have watched people I care about navigate this stage of life with grace, and I have watched others struggle with it with heartbreak. And what I have observed, over and over across 30-plus years of practice, is that the difference between those two experiences is rarely dramatic. It is not usually about one single catastrophic event or one perfect medical intervention. It is about the accumulation of small, daily choices. The quiet, consistent decisions about what you put on your plate, compounding over months and years into either strength or fragility. I need you to hear me say this. Your body has a remarkable ability to respond to better inputs at any age. We are not talking about reversing decades in a week, but the research on nutrition and aging is unambiguous that positive dietary changes in your 60s and 70s and 80s do produce measurable improvements in circulation, nerve function, muscle strength, and balance. The body does not give up just because it has gotten older. It responds. It adapts. It rewards good inputs with better performance at any age. So here is your action plan. 3 things. That is all I am asking you to take away from this conversation today. First, add beets for blood flow. Whether you eat them roasted, add beet powder to a smoothie, or find another preparation you enjoy, get beets into your routine several times a week. Open that garden hose. Get the oxygen moving down to your legs and feet. That is the foundation. Second, make sweet potatoes your potato of choice. Every time you might have reached for a white potato, reach for a sweet potato instead. Protect those nerve endings from blood sugar spikes. Keep the signal between your feet and your brain clear and fast. Replenish the magnesium and potassium that your legs need to stop cramping and start recovering overnight. Third, choose dark greens over empty calories. Replace the iceberg in your salads with spinach, romaine, arugula, or kale. Make sure your daily vegetable serving is actually delivering the vitamin K, the lutein, the folate, and the magnesium that your legs and your nervous system are asking for. Every single day. Because every single day is an opportunity, and your legs are worth that opportunity. And watch your corn intake if it has been a regular feature of your meals. Switch your canned tomatoes to BPA-free, no salt-added versions. These are not dramatic sacrifices. They are simple, concrete adjustments that could have a profound impact on how your legs feel 6 months from now. Your body is keeping score. Every good choice is a deposit. Every lost opportunity is a withdrawal. And the account we are managing here is not an abstract number. It is your ability to walk to the car without holding on to something. It is your ability to get up in the morning and move through your day without fear. It is your ability to walk to the door when your grandchildren arrive, to take a stroll on a warm evening, to live your life in the fullest possible sense of that phrase. Falling is the #1 cause of fatal injury in adults over 65. But it does not have to be your story. The erosion that leads to falls is not inevitable. It is, in large part, nutritional. And nutrition is something you have the power to change, starting with your very next meal. I am Dr. Clarence Martin. I have dedicated my career to the belief that for anyone over the age of 65, the ultimate measure of health is not a number on a lab report or a reading on a blood pressure cuff. It is the ability to walk freely, through your home, through your neighborhood, through the life you have spent decades building. You have worked for that life. You have earned it. And you have earned the right to live these years on your own terms. Now go make those decisions count.